everyone. I'm your host Noopur, and I'm back with another interesting discussion today with Madu Ratnayake. He is an accomplished C-suite executive leader. He's having deep experience in envisioning digital strategy, business transformation, cybersecurity, and building global high-performing teams. Hi, Madhu. How are you?
Hi, great to be here, Noopur.
Thanks for being with us for this discussion and looking forward to a lot of takeaways.
Absolutely.
So, Madhu, as we have seen that you have expertise in envisioning digital strategy, cybersecurity. So, my first question to you is that we have seen in COVID-19 pandemic that the use of digital tools or digital media at home and office has increased a lot. So, what is the impact of the same on cybersecurity?
Yeah, Noopur, I think it's a very, very pertinent question for today's environment. Right? As you correctly said, the digital adoption has got accelerated in the last 2 years. Right? If you think about whether it's a banking or retail or entertainment, the new user coming into the environment has been going beyond 20 to 30%. Right? And in some environment like banking, the digital adoption has shifted to almost as high as 70% plus. Right? So there is a significant trend of existing users using digital and new users coming in, right? So, and these, once people get used to it, this is not something that's going to change. So we have essentially increased our digital footprint of companies significantly. That's on one hand, right? On the other hand, people have moved to working from home, and that means your connectivity and your net access to office has been now, instead of in a secure environment in a physical facility, obviously, as we all know, is now everywhere in the world, right? These two combined has created a lot more digital surfaces or digital touch points in a business, right? So whether it's your application, increase applications on the internet, or more of your people are on the internet now, and that creates just a simple threat landscape has increased, right? As a result of that, your threats have increased. At the same time, the attacks have also got a lot more sophisticated, right? There's a lot of automated attacks. So as a result, as we go more digital, as we go more remote work, essentially threats have radically increased. If I quote some numbers, in the last couple of years, there's been 600% plus increase in cyber attacks. So it's quite a challenge to address.
That's quite a significant number that you have mentioned, and I'm sure the impact has been huge. So, Madhu, going forward, please help me understand how one company's cybersecurity can have an impact on others, especially to the end customers.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think very topical. Again, most companies are now not only worried about their cybersecurity, but entire supply chain, right? Because no longer companies deliver services on their own, right? They will have other suppliers, other vendors, and so it's the information that we collect from consumers and end users get passed down along the supply chain, right? So essentially, to protect that information, you need to make sure the entire supply chain is secured. Your company and all your suppliers and their suppliers. As long as information flows outside of your organization, you need to have a security strategy to make sure you connect that. So if you have say you're doing a payroll processing and you're sending your payroll to, simple example, some company who does your processing for you, but they don't take enough precautions to protect that information, you could be vulnerable, right? Because your information is now with a third party. Or if you're a bank, your statement printing is happening in a third party company, and you're sending all your customer information to print the statements, right? And if those guys haven't put the right security information, and that could be a backdoor for your bank. So it's very important that you look at end to end. Where does the information get collected? Are we collecting the right amount, just enough? And then all the way that goes to supply chain, you have to secure it. So that's why it's very important. Now, any service delivery is in digital supply chain. And this is the reason that every company and individual needs to think about this as a supply chain issue and not only your own company issue.
Certainly, Madhu. So you have explained it very nicely. And I'm sure there are many challenges that we had seen in the cybersecurity area. But what are the top three cybersecurity challenges to look for in 2022 according to you?
Yeah. So I might use top four, right? And one I already talked about, which is really increasing threat landscape, right? Whether, we all see increasing ransomware attacks, increasing, cyber warfare now happening because of, Ukraine-Russia issue. So essentially, the number one issue that people will face is the increasing in threats and more sophistication in those threats, right? So you are, there's more people now going after your assets and your digital things. So that's number one. Number two is really the increasing in regulation, right? More countries and nations are putting more regulation around data protection, regulation about cybersecurity. So as companies collect more citizen data, it's become companies are becoming more accountable to protect that data, right? So because your digital identity is a lot more important now than maybe a few years ago, right? As a result, governments are coming together and putting these regulatory requirements, and your boards and your company, if you're collecting data now, you will be accountable, right? You can end up in jail if you don't address these issues. So that's the second challenge, right? Your regulation is increasing. I think the third challenge is really the talent shortage, right? In terms of, for you to address these challenges, you need the experienced cybersecurity professionals, right? And worldwide, there is a massive demand for cybersecurity professionals. Skill gap is about 3.5 million people gap in year 2025. So there is a significant gap. This year was about 2.5 million people gap. So it's increasing gap, right? That's the third issue. Even if you want to address it, there's not enough people that you can use to address it. And the fourth, I think, is the most significant challenge I see is a lack of alignment between the boardroom and the CISOs and the IT heads about what needs to get done for security, right? Because people see it as a complex issue. Either they are not aware of what to do, or the or technology people are not good at explaining it into executives to get the right level of buy-in in their terms. So this gulf between boardrooms and technology people will exacerbate this problem, right? So the challenge would be to really, for technology people and cybersecurity people, is not having that buy-in in the organization to be able to address this, right? Most people address this when they got hit by some attack. Everybody wakes up and this becomes a top of the agenda. But very few companies take a proactive stance and address cybersecurity as a business risk. So that I would say is the fourth risk, and in my mind, the largest risk, and easily fixable also.
Yeah, so I'm sure there are many, but thanks for highlighting these four. We may expect the large organizations, Madhu, to have regulations and processes in place for cybersecurity purposes. But what is your experience about cyber resilience of small and medium businesses?
Yeah, I think small and medium business are also now getting a lot more digital, right? And you can see completely digital natives, SMEs, a lot more of them. So the risk landscape is no different whether you are large enterprise or small enterprise, right? You will still have to, if you're putting your business risk is almost the same, right? If your business is completely based on digital, doesn't matter how big or small you have the same susceptibility for attacks. And I think the challenge for small and medium companies is the ability to kind of build and bring a strong cybersecurity focus inside the company. And because to do this, you need multiple experts, right? You need a senior leader who understands security. If you have network, you have a network security person. If you're doing cloud, you need a cloud security person. If you are running monitoring, you need people who can do threat monitoring. You need people who can do attack simulation. So you need it's a highly specialized field, so you need multiple specialists to do it, right? In a small company, it's you can't afford to have, if your whole company is 100 people, you can't afford to have 10 people doing cybersecurity, right? It just does not make sense. And to add to that problem, even if you want to do it, it's very difficult to attract and retain cybersecurity people in a small company. It's challenging, right? And so that's why I think this whole idea about outsource cybersecurity, having managed security service providers coming in and really provide that higher level of security, or same level of enterprise level security at a fraction of a cost for these SMEs. So that's what they should be really looking at, instead of trying to create significant investment and build all those teams. They can start quickly by leveraging third parties who are focusing on solving this problem for small and medium companies, and address that. So that's kind of approach small and medium companies can take and should take.
All right, all right. And Madhu, you have mentioned about alignment between board directors and C-suite team in one of the answers which we have previously discussed. How can we prioritize and involve cyber in business decisions? I think that's very critical.
Absolutely. I think it's a simple, in my mind, it's a fairly simple thing, right? The minute you think about cyber security as a technology issue, then you will never be able to bridge that gap, right? Because boards will never understand the technology complexity required to drive cyber to the level. But if you think about cybersecurity issue as a business risk, it's like, if you think about it as a risk, then you are trying to really, you have the ability to understand and address it, right? If you think about the risk, what do you do, how to address, just a formula for risk, right? If you think about the risk, what you do, initially you will trying to reduce the probability of the risk happening, right? And the second thing, you reduce the impact of that risk if it happens. And the third thing you do is reduce the exposure in the event it happens, right? So if you think about it, that's the formula for risk, right? Your risk exposure is your probability into your impact equals exposure, right? That's the simple formula for risk. Now, if you think about this as a business risk, then your job becomes, how do you reduce the probability of something happening? How do you reduce the impact of something when something happens, or impact of an event when event happen? And thirdly, if you really exposure happen, how do you reduce impact of it, right? So to those three things, very simple, right? If you talk about risk, reducing probability, it's about putting some good defenses, right? Making sure that you have if you keep the house door open, somebody will walk in, right? But if you put the door closed and put a bolt on it, and then your likelihood of people coming in less. So you look at, similarly, you look at what are the things that you can do in your company to reduce the probability of somebody attacking or somebody inside taking information out. That's all about controls, right? You put in those controls. Then the second thing, he said, how do you reduce the probability of impact, right? While you do all these controls to protect, somebody will still break in, right? And if somebody wants to get in, so how do you reduce the impact of somebody breaking in? Reduce the so that's again fairly simple, right? How do you make, I'm not saying it's simple in a say to do it, but you can think about it in a simple way, saying if somebody comes in, right, you have your data. If somebody comes in as like a ransomware attack comes in, they're going to take your data and hold you ransom to give money to release the data. If you simply do backups, or if you simply encrypt your data, right, and your likelihood of somebody taking your data out and then trying to hold you hostage will be less. Your data is encrypted, it's not going to be any use to anybody who take it, right? If you have a backup very well done, then you can quickly recover your business and keep going even somebody comes and takes your things, right? So, backing up, encryption, and doing those testing regularly can help you reduce the impact of that happening, right? The third is how do you reduce exposure. So to reduce exposure, you need to know that something is happening in your environment, right? So first thing is to how do you detect very quickly some attack is going on. So you have to have your right monitoring systems in place. So you typically detect quickly. In the last year, average time for somebody company to know that they've been attacked is 287 days. Right? For 287 days, on average, people don't know somebody's attacking their company. Right? So almost close to a year, somebody's coming and attacking you, you don't even know. So you're building your, to reduce exposure, you build your detection capability. So you'll monitor, you'll understand what's going on, you'll put some tripwires like what you do, and really figure out how quickly can you detect. And then you can respond, right? And then if you can quickly detect and respond, you can reduce the blast radius of an attack. So that's how you should look at it, right? Think about it as a risk, reduce probability, reduce impact, and reduce exposure. And there are many ways of doing it. You can ask your cybersecurity person to say, okay, how do I reduce the impact? Or how do I reduce the probability of cyber attack happening to me? What should I do? What are the 3 steps we should do first? And if that conversation happens that way as a business risk, and I think it'll be a lot easier for business and the technology leaders to come together, right? Both sides understand risk. Business leaders and board members will understand risk. You know, that's one of the things they are very focused on. Then the technology leaders can understand risk. So risk language is what we need to bring into the picture that will help people to bridge this gap between, you know, treating this as a technology issue.
All right, Madhu, thanks for sharing this in such a detail, because I believe, as I was saying earlier, it is very critical to include it in the business decisions to make the workspace safer, and especially for the end customers, I would say. So thanks for going in detail about it. Now, we have spoken about the challenges, we have spoken about the large and medium and small organizations, and how to prioritize the decisions, or involve it in the business decisions. Now, let's talk about the solutions, Madhu. So, what are the key solutions according to you for data protection for small to large organizations?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of things, right? And first one is to really understand what you're trying to protect. What are your crown jewels? Really be very clear about what is of value to you and what is of value to a external actor or internal insider who might be interested in that, right? So first step in good cybersecurity strategy is to understand your crown jewels, right? And then really putting controls around it. And then the second step is building a good, strong awareness and a culture around data protection, data security in the company, right? You can put a lot of technology, but simply an individual pressing the wrong link or individual maliciously sending something out to somebody, you can very easily get compromised if your people supply chain or people or human firewall is not good, right? So that's one of the key things you need to do. Make sure that your team members understand what is the crown jewels. They understand their don'ts and do's. They've been trained. They understand what to do when there's an issue. It's not only simply being trained to do, but they also understand how to respond something happens. So that's the second thing, right? Making sure you build a strong culture inside the company that that everybody takes this as their job, not just some, you know, 5 guys in an IT department or a security department, right? If you take, you know, if it's a business risk, everybody should be actively involved in protecting the business, right? Third thing is obviously putting the technology. You know, the technology has advanced quite a bit. You know, AI and other technologies have come into cyber, so you can detect anomalous behaviors. You know, something wrong is going on. Now you can detect a lot better, a lot easier, a lot faster. So the third thing is really putting in good technology. So if there's a large volume of data being copied out, right, in your data protection example, if your technology looks at this and say, okay, normally this person only copy, you know, average 10 megabytes a day, all of a sudden there is, you know, hundreds of megabytes being copied out. And then that can trigger a automated response to either block that and ask the person what's going on. It could be that person's credential might be compromised, somebody else might be using that credential to do it, right? So there's a lot of advancements in technology to be able to detect and protect. And I think the third thing is really looking at and picking the right technology, right? And I think it's very important. You know, one of the things are about cybersecurity, there's so many platforms out there. There's so many vendors, hundreds and thousands of people are building products to protect, right? And different aspects of protection. Picking the right technology and really aligning to your risk and your team is the crucial thing, right? And that's become the last critical thing, I think. So these are three things I would say to have a good, solid data protection program. Firstly, understand it, make sure that your crown jewels are very clear. Secondly, have a good culture around data and data security in the company. Everybody plays a role in this. And thirdly, putting the right technology in place for the protection.
That sounds amazing. Thank you, Madhu, for sharing the insights on these topics. And now, having so many questions answered, we will move to our second round, which is going to be a rapid fire. So, my first question is, which is your favorite quote, which you have recently read somewhere?
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is from a guy called Alvin Toffler, who's a futurist, and he said that illiterate of the future is not the people who can't read and write. Illiterate of the future are people who can't learn, unlearn, and relearn. Right? So it just talks about changing environment, how rapidly and how important that you to change your perspectives and learn and keep relevant, be relevant in the environment. So I love that quote. And that's something that we have in our office at the entrance, and reminding ourselves that you have to be keep relevant, right?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Any place you have recently traveled?
Well, travel has not been something that happened that much in the last couple of years because of pandemic. But we, as a result, we would travel a lot more locally, right? And been to some of the very nice beaches and around down south in Sri Lanka. And in Chennai. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to go to the beach, and whenever I get a chance.
Yeah, we hope the world opens up soon so that we can also visit the beaches of Sri Lanka.
Yeah, absolutely.
Madhu, what is one of the myths that you had come across about cybersecurity?
I think it's one of the myths is that it's a too complex issue to deal with, right? And I think there is a whole demystifying that needs to happen, I believe, right? And so it's one of the biggest myths is that it's a technology issue, right? I think that's the biggest myth. I think it is a business issue, not a technology issue. But if you believe it's a technology issue, then you have a lot of challenges to overcome. So I think that's one of the myths, I believe.
All right, and the last question is about the future trend. What could be the future trend in the area of cybersecurity or data protection as per your experience?
Yeah, I think a couple of major trends I see. One obviously is the cyber warfare among countries, right? You can see what's happening in Russia and Ukraine, and that impact of that around the world. It's not just between the two countries; it's many more people are involved, right? So I think we have to really think about how do we ready for cyber warfare, right? The threats that you envision in the past and that you could envision if your country is at risk or countries on attack would be very different. So I think that's going to be something that companies have to really think about and prepare, because that's not easy to prepare for, right? Because these nation state attacks are highly resourced, highly complex, highly skilled people doing it, right? So it's not going to be that easy to defend against them. So you have to really think about how to address that. That's probably one key trend I think we have to be ready for. Second thing, as I said earlier, the detection and protection side also getting a lot more advanced. There's a lot more technology going in, a lot more AI going in. Many companies are investing heavily to build technology to be able to detect and protect. Right? That's I think the second thing trend. I think while it's becoming more riskier, I think there are tools also coming up to help you protect. Right? And I think that's the second trend I think we should focus on. The final third thing is do security. More people will be doing security as by design as opposed to security as an afterthought, right? You build things with the security in mind. Security become part and parcel of your product design process, your product engineering process. So when it comes out, it's built to be security aware, built to be threat aware, right? Your software will be themselves can figure out if it's getting attacked, right? So you have to build those technologies into your things that you're building. So those three things, I think, are my favorite things when you come to about trends.
All right, Madhu. And with that, we come to the end of this discussion, and I would like you to provide your 1 cent tip for quick cyber security, which businesses and individuals can keep in mind.
Yeah, I think the quick tip is take care of your hygiene, right? Most of the attacks come not because you haven't done some great massive tool or something, right? Most of the attacks come because you have not taken care of some small things, right? If you don't close the front door, and leave it open, you're inviting people to come in, right? So you have to make sure your cyber hygiene is taken care of, your patching, your configurations, your firewall rules. These are the basics. And a lot of large percentage of attack happens because people are not doing basics. So my tip is really be maniacal about the basics, right? We really take care of the small things with a vengeance, real focus, and then the big things will take care of themselves, right? You really have to focus on the small things and make sure they're top of mind. That will create the right culture, that will create the right focus in your teams, and that's how you can take care of big things.
All right, Madhu. Well, that's wonderful. I don't even realize that we have come to the end of this discussion. We started discussing how COVID-19 had an impact of digital tools being used at many folds and how it can affect the cybersecurity, how others companies cybersecurity can impact other companies and the end customers, some challenges, some solutions. It's been great to have you sharing your valuable insights and experiences with us, Madhu.
Thank you for inviting me. Great to be with you.